Introducing Richard Turner. He is a world-famous card shark, a card mechanic.
A mechanic is somebody who can fix something. An auto mechanic fixes a car. I'm a card mechanic. I can fix a card game.
Ace of cards, Richard Turner.
He can do things with cards no one else can do. He's a trickster.
Reaching the top of his profession, the pinnacle of success.
When I saw Richard Turner perform, I was in the presence of greatness.
And all the time, concealing a secret.
About halfway through the show, you can see different members of the audience realize it.
Denying a reality.
This guy can't see.
I was very mad, and a little bit of rebellion was starting to fester.
Part of his lifestyle was being not blind.
He did not want to be treated any differently.
Yet rejecting the impossible in virtually every element of his life.
Don't tell him he can't do something.
He's on the crazy end of obsessive compulsive.
He never puts the cards down.
He never takes a break.
He makes that little sound all the time.
Don't let anyone tell you that it's impossible.
And finally, accepting the inevitable.
We all have something that we have to deal with and that we have to accept. I didn't want to accept it, but now I happily accept it. I actually consider myself very blessed with the way I see and what I have been able to do with the other senses.
Blind Abilities presents Richard Turner, a phenomenal story of a man who achieved unbelievable success on his own merit through persistence and hard work, and by taking possible out of impossible. Please join Jeff Thompson and Pete Lane and their special guest, Richard Turner.
Find out what you love. Find out what you love first of all, what you're passionate about, something that you don't have to try to do, something that you can't stop doing.
Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Jeff Thompson.
And I'm Pete Lane. We have a very special guest with us this morning. Richard Turner is a world-renowned card mechanic, which we'll explain in the course of this interview. But first, I want to say good morning, Richard. Welcome to Blind Abilities. And can I start by asking you, is it okay if we call you Rick?
My name is Richard Turner, but you're welcome to call me Rick. All my friends call me Rick.
Excellent.
And I'm happy to be here with you, too.
Great.
Glad to hear you, Rick. Glad to meet you, finally.
Technology is an amazing thing.
Yeah. Well, Rick, let's kick it off. In the intro, we kind of set up your credentials. You are a world-renowned card mechanic. But let's first start off by telling us the starting point. Talk about your early childhood and what gave you the passion for cards.
Well, I was the oldest in my family, a family of 4. We were very poor. We had 4 games: Monopoly, checkers, chess, and a deck of cards. And because I was the oldest, I didn't like to lose. So I started figuring out ways so that I didn't lose. And when we would play poker or gin rummy or I doubt it or whatever poker game, we would play for M&Ms. And of course, the reds were the most valuable, and then they went down to the browns were the least valuable. And not only did I want all my M&Ms, I wanted all my sister's M&Ms. So I started figuring out ways of manipulating the cards in such a way that I got the M&M. So that's how it got started. And then, of course, the interest for manipulating the cards came from a TV show that was one of my favorites at the time called Maverick, starring James Garner.
Maverick is the name.
There's a line in the end of the film saying, Natchez to Orleans, living on Jackson, Queens.
Natchez to New Orleans, living on Jackson, Queens. Maverick is a legend of the West.
And I wanted to live on Jackson, Queens.
Living on Jackson, Queens. What a motto.
Maverick is a legend of the West.
So why don't you tell us a little more about your childhood and what kind of fed that fire?
Let me back up a little bit. At first, I thought I'd end up being an artist. But when I was in kindergarten, I did a finger painting that was a replication of a photo I saw in National Geographic. And all my teachers and everyone just went nuts at how amazing it was. So I thought I was going to end up being an artist. And then when I was 9, my sister and I both contracted a disease that caused the retina in our eyes to begin to degenerate. That took away my ability to paint and draw, and then partly refocused it on everything having to do with touch. And the cards are touch.
Yes, they are.
So, Richard, when you first started losing your eyesight, did you go through some type of school? Did you get specialized teachers or anything to get involved in your vision loss?
Yes, I went to Carlton Hills, which was a city next to the city I grew up in. So I had to be bused to school, which meant I had to leave all my friends and the kids I grew up with on my own street in my own neighborhood, which was a scary thought for a 9-year-old. The school had what was called at that time a visually handicapped department, VH department. The person that ran it was a wonderful man named Ed Bryan. He was an attorney, and he devoted 70 years towards working with people with visual impairments of all levels. He had in his room the encyclopedia on Braille, and I thought it was impractical because it took up the entire wall. And he had all kinds of three-dimensional puzzles and games to, once again, work on tactile things, and then, large print typewriters and Braille typewriters. And he had an assistant named Mrs. Smith, who at the time I thought she probably was between 120 and 140 years old, but I could have been wrong about that. But just the sweetest lady ever. And Ed Bryan, the VH instructor, was an amateur magician, and he would show my friend who was in the VH department with me named Ruben tricks like restoring a piece of rope that I would snip in half. He'd put the two pieces in his mouth, and then we would pull on them and it'd be restored, or turn a stack of nickels into a stack of dimes. Very simple magic tricks. At the time, I didn't understand how simple. They would see me playing with the cards, and Mrs. Smith had this giant 7-inch reel-to-reel tape recorder. This was in the middle 60s. She recorded parts of a book called Expert at the Card Table by S.W. Erdnase. She recorded parts on how to false shuffle, how to deal seconds, how to deal bottoms, different types of palms and shifts. That started giving me things to work on and kind of an edge. And that's really what got that passion with the cards stimulated and going.
So, Richard, what inspired you to say, hey, this vision loss, I can overcome it?
A lot of rebellion. Fourth grade is when I started losing my vision. Fifth grade, the school I went to had no facilities, so I really did nothing for the entire year except for art. There was rebellion. Then when I got into high school, first day of high school, I got in trouble because the kid next to me, I said, let's play a little poker while we wait for the teacher. And I beat him out of a quarter, which at that time was a mass fortune. That was more than the price of a lunch. That was the price of a lunch plus a nickel. And the teacher comes in, she takes my cards away from me and sends me to the back of the class.
I want to introduce you a very special guest, Richard Turner. Richard, thanks for being on with us here on Valuetainment.
I am so honored to be with you here, Patrick. It's very cool.
I'll show you some moves.
As Richard prepares to show him the moves, he places the deck of cards in his left hand, and with his right hand, he casually deals 9 to 10 cards on the table to show the motion of his dealing.
There's your King of Spades, yes? Now, I want the King of Spades. We deal cards around the table. Watch face up. See how the card stays as the second card is dealt. But see, this particular second deal is actually named after me. It's called Turner Sweep Second.
He then flips over just the top card on the deck, showing a king. He then shows the interviewer that the top card remains, and the second card on the deck is what is being dealt.
But what I have to do is my left thumb must apply the precise amount of pressure to push over exactly 22.6 thousandths of an inch. And that is the caliper of 2 cards, see? Exactly 2 cards.
He slowly moves his thumb across the top of the deck, showing that 2 cards on top of the deck are moving.
And then my right thumb, it only has a 64th of a second as it's sweeping across the deck here to engage that second card and then deal it out.
With his right hand, he gives a quick motion across the top of the cards and only grabs the second one on the deck. Even when he slows the motion down, it's almost impossible to tell that he is not dealing the top card.
Oh my gosh. I'll do it real slow, really slow it down. It's all based on finger control. You do it really, really slowly.
With his left thumb, he again pushes only 2 cards off to be grabbed by his right hand.
You turn it face up so you can see a little more clearly. See? Relaxed grip, natural grip. And see, here's one-handed.
He then begins to deal seconds with only his left hand. With the top card flipped over showing the king, he does a casual twist of his left hand and dropping a card face up. The king remains in place and only the second card falls from the deck.
Now when the card's face down, it's hard to tell that you're being taken. That's dealing seconds.
You've used the word rebellion a couple of times. So essentially, I'm seeing that as you were rebelling and refusing to acknowledge the fact that you were blind. You were kind of like rejecting the whole idea, and you did pretty much everything you could during that period of time to distance yourself from it. Is that pretty accurate, you think?
That would be very accurate. And that was the status for quite a number of years of my life.
your entire professional career almost, right?
30 years of it, yeah.
Talk about why you did that. Eventually you're getting into your profession, which is professional card mechanics, because you actually did everything you could to conceal your blindness and act as if you were sighted. But talk about your career and how that went when you were rejecting that blindness.
Well, what turned me around from rebellion against things was a friend said, hey, come to church. You're not here by accident. You're here by design. So I started going to church, and I believe there's a God and we're not here by accident. And I started in a karate class March 5th, 1971. My karate instructor, Master John Murphy, would say, we don't care if you're blind, deaf, or dumb, we beat everyone equally. So he kind of laid the foundation for me to believe, doesn't matter what your situation is, you can fight your way through it. He kind of laid that foundation for me to believe in myself that if there's an obstacle there, it's just one more thing to blast through. So that's the first mentor. My angel's one of my mentors. Then 2 years later, I was going to a Bible college. The chancellor there introduced me to an actor who was looking to form a theater company. And he was an actor, TV movie, an actor during the 50s and early 60s. And his name was Steve Terrell. When we would rehearse for plays, my macula was gone, which is the center part of the eye, the center part of the retina. And so I'd have to look out of the corner of my eye to see anything. And out of the corner of my eye was 20/400. So it was a blur. So on stage, I would be interacting with the actor, but I'd be looking out of the corner of my eye. So if you can picture this, the actor in front is at 12 o'clock in front of me, but I'm looking at 2 o'clock. And so from the audience point of view, it looked very strange. And he finally said, Rick, you're looking off to the side and it just doesn't look right on stage. So he taught me how to square my head towards the voice. Over the years, I learned how to change the focus of my eyes because there's a lens. You can zoom out far for something at distance and you can zoom in for something close. And so I taught myself how to picture things 4 feet away, 8 feet away, 20 feet away, 100 feet away, and change that focus so it looked normal. And so he's the one that taught me how to look people in the eye and give them the impression that I could see them.
I think a lot of our audience can relate to that. Now, you have Charles Bonnet syndrome or Charles Bonnet syndrome.
Charles Bonnet, yeah.
Kind of started in the center of your macula, which is the center of the retina, and it kind of worked its way out. A lot of people have a similar condition. They try to focus toward whoever they're talking to, but then it makes it difficult to actually pick up their body language and actually see them. So did you have to deal with that on stage? I'm wondering if you're directing your gaze straight into their face, how did you know when they were moving to a different area? They're still in your blind spot. You follow me?
Yes, I do. And at that time, one of the ways I knew I was looking at them is I couldn't see anything. You figure wherever you're looking, that's where the blind spot is. I'd have to look to the side to see the shadow or the image or whatever. So if I knew I couldn't see them, I was looking straight on.
That transfers well, like in job interviews or when you're having discussions with people too. I'm the same way. If I can't see them, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about.
So you kind of parlayed that talent moving forward into your career and into karate. That was one of your basic tools to help kind of disguise your blindness.
Right. There was a movie we were forced to watch when I was in 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade called Lord of the Flies. And it was about a group of kids that were stranded on an island. They became savages. And one of them, his name was Piggy, and he was blind, asthmatic, chubby guy. And he was picked on. They called him Piggy. And I thought the only difference between Piggy and myself is I was skinny, blind, and had asthma. I was always afraid of turning out like Piggy. So that's one. There was another show, shows you the impact that TV had on me. Another show on television called Lost in Space, where Jonathan Harrison played Dr. Smith in this goofy series, and Will Robinson, the young 10-year-old boy, was always the hero fighting this goofy monster, papier-mâché monster, while Dr. Smith is hiding behind a rock somewhere. And I was afraid I'd turn out like Dr. Smith. And then the third influence was watching Tarzan move. The guy's running across a tree that had fell between 2 cliffs. Someone would always stop and say, whatever you do, don't look down. And then they'd start running, and there's always that person would stop, look down, fall to their death. And I was always afraid I was going to be that coward that looked down and fell to my death. That just kind of, in overdrive, stimulated me to push the envelope way beyond what others did. Not only did I overcompensate, I had to take everything that I did to the far and to the extreme.
Now, the final point. You're legally blind.
Yeah, and I don't see very well either.
Well, how could you possibly fight?
I don't know. Find out. Sit and watch.
My first fight is with John Douglas. His punches measured at 1,700 pounds per square inch.
And when you're talking about karate, we're not just talking get involved in it. You are now a 6th degree black belt.
That is correct. And I had earned my black belt under this crazy man Murphy. He had, at the time, what was considered the most difficult black belt test in the country. The class of 57, Chuck Norris is a class of 58, and he started school in 1960. And he started it across the border in Tijuana because he didn't want to deal with lawsuits. And to earn my black belt, I had to fight 10 men in a row. Each round was 3 minutes, like a boxer would go. You'd have a fresh opponent. So it would be the equivalent of Muhammad Ali fighting Joe Frazier, Larry Holmes, one after another, a fresh fighter, where they're fresh and you're not. And you get pretty beat up. In fact, I got pretty beat up. I managed to survive it. All you have to do is come out alive with spirit. He defined that as even if your teeth had been punched down your throat, you're still smiling. I had a smashed, bloody nose, ruptured right eardrum. The groin was an open shot. I had it kicked a number of times. One time after they yelled Yame, which means stop fighting, we were in clinch. He took his knee and rammed it up between my legs. And you can see me on the tape. I'm a standing 8 count trying to get my brain back after the pain. Then I also caught a roundhouse kick, and he snapped my right arm. So I fought 3.5 rounds with a broken right arm. It took me 13 years and 3 months of training before I was ready to take on the 10 men. And most people in our school, by 4 or 5 years, if they even made it, only 1 in 20 would move past a green belt in this school because of how rough it was. By that point, they wanted to give me an honorary black belt, and I said, nope, I want to earn it the same way all the other guys did. I'm going to go to 10 rounds. I did it. It's done. I'll never do it again. Never have to do it again. I never could do it again. I'm an old man now.
But that tenacity, that fight that you have, that's what you've taken into most of your challenges.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tenacity is what breaks down the barriers that stand between you and your dream.
Say a number 10 to 20.
10 to 20?
Yeah, pick a number.
Okay, 17.
Okay, I'm going to try cut with one hand 17 cards.
As Richard cuts the deck, he picks up cards off the top of the deck, separates it from the rest of the deck, and hands it to the interviewer to count them.
Come on.
Well, we'll count them, we'll find out.
The interviewer, with an extremely amazed look on his face, takes the cards and slowly counts them out.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Do we
Come
guess?
on.
Pat him back.
Come
back, face down. Okay.
I mean, how could you do that? One-handed, I just said it 1 second, you gave it to me.
With the extremely sensitive feel of his fingers and amazing muscle memory, he easily removes 17 cards from the deck. He then takes the deck, puts it back together, and splits it in half.
Let me try this. 4 and 10, 2 different numbers at the same time.
With each hand, he grabs 2 different numbers of cards at exactly the same time.
1, 2, 3. I got that one. See if that's 10 cards.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, put them back on the deck face down. Okay.
He picked up 4 cards with his right hand and 10 cards with his left hand.
So this whole time when we're in the karate progression, you're still working on your cards and you're practicing. In fact, we've heard you say you practice your card mechanics between 10 and 20 hours per day and averaged about 14 hours per day. What drove you to that? You said tenacity, but you've also acknowledged that you have an obsessive compulsive streak. Do you think that entered into it as well?
Yes, all of the above. And as we're sitting here talking, I'm sitting there practicing second gear. And I have been the whole time. That's what Steve Terrell would say. I'm practicing before my scene. I go on stage, do my scene. The second I get off stage, I pull the cards out of my back pocket and go back to practicing. And he said something to me that really stuck. He said, you love cards. If you become the best in the world, you will earn the respect of others, and that will open doors for you. He told me that back in 1972, 73. So that is true. I do put in a lot of hours. In fact, they calculate I probably put in more hours than anybody on the planet, because it really boils down to Gladwell's rule of 10,000 hours to become a master, which is basically like 3 hours a day, 7 days a week for 10 years straight. And I have that times 15 at last count. One move. The move I'm doing right now, I have done over 100 million times, right around 5 million times in front of a live audience.
Wow.
Your question was, how do you get that tenacity? How do you get that discipline? I'm kind of one of those high-wired people to begin with. And if I grew up today, they would probably put me on all those drugs The guy's got too much energy.
Adderall and all that
Let's
stuff.
neuter
Yeah.
the guy. Yeah, exactly. ADD and all those things.
And the world would have been deprived of the card mechanic called Richard Turner. So tell us briefly, what is the difference between a magician and a card mechanic?
That's a very good question and a very good distinction. There's a pyramid of magic. There's illusionists like Siegfried and Roy, where they move big giant illusions where people appear and disappear or turn into a tiger. That's really more what people call in the industry furniture moving. They're very expensive pieces of apparatus. And then there's the parlor magician, which is for a medium-sized audience where they'll like link rings together or 3 ropes that are different lengths so make them all the same length. And then there's what's called the close-up magician, where it's done right at a table. It has to be an intimate setting or audience. They'll make coins jump from one hand to the other, or they'll do card tricks. They'll put a card in the middle of the deck and it comes back to the top. The card mechanic is probably the tip of the spear as far as levels of training and difficulty, because the card mechanic is somebody who can fix a card game. That's what the term mechanic means. Somebody fixes something. And in other words, control the outcome. At a card table, you cannot use the tricks that a magician do, like misdirection, any kind of misdirection or any kind of action that breaks the normal flow of the game will instantly put you under suspicion. And depending on the the time period, they would shoot you. Other times they break your hands. Other times they just throw in their cards and won't play with you. So you have to do all your, I'll just use the word dirty work without using any kind of misdirection. But then it gets down to the techniques to be able to deal a card from the middle of the deck and have it look like it came off the top is a skill that a handful of people can do. Some of the moves that I do, there are 2 or 3 people that have been working on some of those moves for 20 and 30 years and they still haven't got them down because it just takes that many hours. It's just that difficult to acquire.
I take it your sister doesn't play for M&Ms against you anymore.
No, she's a cheater. We'd play massage poker growing up where you'd have a foot massage or a back massage. She said, I always had to massage his stinky feet. And then one time we're playing, and then I found she had the aces hidden under the carpet because we're laying on the floor so they can lay out and get their back massage. And she was the darn cheater.
Oh, no.
And I said, Laura, you're the one cheating. He goes, well, that's because I don't trust you for a second. We laugh about that.
So you said earlier that when you lost your vision, you think your brain kind of rewired itself to redirect the focus to your sense of touch, to your tactile sense. And that's really where you live in your card mechanics, right? You have such a sensitive touch for the cards that you can actually detect the caliper, the width or the depth of a card, which is exactly 11.3 thousandths of an inch thick. So you can precisely deal one card. You can cut the deck to precisely any number of cards. If I say, Rick, cut the deck to 10 cards, you can do that. And it's all based on your sense of touch. You think that truly developed as a result of your blindness?
Yes, here's 10 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There you go. I was on a television special in Japan a few months ago, and they actually timed it. Someone asked for 33 cards, and they put a stopwatch up, and I did it in a second and a half, 1.5 seconds. Anyway, yes, that is true, and I've been interviewed for 2 Harvard projects. One neuroscientist, who's the head of the project, said that the reason why I see the things that I see, because I see my subconscious in external space. Dr. Oliver Sacks probably did more studies on this than anybody. He had one book called Hallucinations, another book called The Mind's Eye, where he found a number of cases of people with Charles Bonnet syndrome, Charles Bonnet in English. So I see my subconscious in front of me. The reason for that is that my haptic and tactile neural network, which is the part of the brain that relates to touch, is hungry and it's looking for other places within my brain to colonate. And it's basically bullied its way into my visual network. And the neurons that were dead there have regenerated and reorganized themselves around the tactile neural network. Just because something is gone doesn't mean it's really gone. So I'm kind of a strange case. And of course, the fingertips there are more the density of nerve endings in the fingertips is higher than pretty much anywhere else on the flesh. So not only did the brain get refocused, at the same time, I've spent my life working with something on a microscopic level. I'm working with cards, and like you said, the deck that I'm holding in my hand is 11.3 thousandths, and it could have been 11.1 thousandths. It could have been 10.9 thousandths. I've been measured by the director of research and development, U.S. Playing Card Company, the biggest card maker in the world, measuring things down to a thousandth, sometimes a tenth of a thousandth of an inch. So the 2 things combined is what really helped Well, actually three things. One, got rid of the sight. That refocused the brain on the tactile neural network. Two, working with something on a microscopic level in my hands. And the third is that nature that I have of not being able to sit still. I would go through 3 to 6 packs of cards a day. I did a quick experiment one time. I had a number of surgeries from injuries from the martial arts. And I told the anesthesiologist, I said, you mind if I hold the cards in my hand while you do the surgery? And he said, sure. And so one time I maintained the deck. Another time I lost about 13 of the cards. They fell out of my hand, even though I was medically put under. But it shows you the power of the subconscious.
You know, something comes to mind when you were talking about this. I know a deck of cards, when you pull them out, you remove the 2 jokers, but they're usually in a typical order. That's one thing. And the other thing is the amount of ink that would be on like a king compared to an ace. I don't know if that's detectable at all. Tell me about when you open up a brand new deck of cards.
Well, I guess I must be a card snob. I'm very picky about my cards, and a B deck, B92, is the best made pack of cards, in my opinion, in the world. And the next best is a bicycle deck, all made by the same company. Just about 80, 90% of the cards available are made by U.S. Playing Card Company. I will take the cards out. I'll feel the edges, how sharp the blades were when they punched them, when they cut them out, the caliper, the snap, if it has a good snap to it, how long they're going to last. I'll have the same run and the same brand, and I go, nah, I don't like this one. Now, yeah, I like this one. I like this one. Even though they're from the same run, the same caliper and everything, all cut to my specifications. I've worked with them for a couple of decades, and so they will run the card to the specs that I say that are best to make a good, long-lasting, user-friendly deck for the people that want to manipulate cards or just gamers. If you look at Bicycle's most recognized pack of cards in the world, and there's one called Gold Seal Bicycles, and there's actually a card in there that says tested and approved by Richard Turner.
Is there a difference between a king and an ace by feel?
Well, there's 2.4 milligrams difference in weight, but that's microscopic.
Because of the ink.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ink. Yeah. Interesting.
People are always asking, why would you waste your time developing a touch like that? I'll show you one of the purposes. Give me a number of players in the card room. 3, 4, 5, pick a number. 4.
Richard is told that there will be 4 players in the game, and the second player is the one that he's going to cheat for.
You're my partner. You want to set it 1, 2, 3, or 4?
2.
4 and 2, okay. And once again, as we mentioned earlier, the way you're allowed to shuffle in the casinos, the deck has to stay face down on the table, okay. Riffle shuffle, because it's the hardest way to control if you're going to control.
He takes the deck of cards and shuffles it in a very standard way.
4 players, second position, take the deck. You don't think I'm doing anything dirty. Deal the card off the top, face up, player 1 right here.
Okay.
And I think you chose kings, and your player number 2, face up a card right here. What's that card?
That's king of clubs.
Player 3 right here,
okay.
And player 4.
Okay.
Start here again, player 1.
Okay.
Number 2 is you. Okay. What's that card?
On.
Player 3.
Okay.
Player 4.
Okay.
Just keep circling the table. Player 1, tell us what number 2 is.
Oh, my king again.
Start Betty, big time there. Patrick, make some money off that producer.
Oh, my God.
After the interviewer deals out all 4 hands, Richard was able to place 2 kings in the exact spot so the second player would receive them. It looks like magic. It's absolutely incredible.
Here's what I do. People say, how can you tell this or that? And then that's only a small fraction of what they're watching. Because here's what I'll do in my show. I'll ask, what poker game do you want to play? Let's say they say 7 cards stud. I'll say, how many players do you want? 5. I say, where do you want to sit? Number 3. And sometimes I'll go to the point of saying, what poker hand do you want? Do you want a straight? Do you want a flush? Do you want a full house? Do you want 4 of a kind? Tell me what you want. And okay, now I give them the deck. They shuffle it up. And I tell them, don't give me the whole deck back. Just give me any random part of the deck. They give me 12 cards. I'll deal around. I'll stop in slow motion at the third position, deal the card, pass those cards back to them. They shuffle them all together, and then hand me any part of the deck you want. Now continue. I'll stop again. Have them shuffle them up. So even if the deck was face up and had a giant embossed K on the back of the K and an A on the back of the A, how could it be conceivable to have done what I just described? But you can go watch it a dozen places on many shows that I've done. I take all the things that people will try to figure out. Well, okay, yeah, there's a difference in weight, but it's minute. Yes, he can tell us by his thickness. But yet, I'm stopping. I'm taking those cards out of his hand. I'm shuffling them up, and I'm just handing him a random stack. And then there's the hand I just asked for is sitting right where I just asked for it to be dealt. I'll say, do you understand what just happened? No. Well, I shuffled Pete's cards back in the deck exactly where Jeff chose, and Pete dealt them to prove that I did it. And the identification is just a small fraction of what's going to make that happen, because as I'm shuffling those cards, my thumbs are having to feel exact number of cards as they're interlaced between exact number of cards. And if I miss any shuffle by the thickness of a single card, 11.3 thousandths in this case, I messed up. The whole thing just doesn't work. It won't happen. Sometimes I could just miss one shuffle by the thickness of one card, depending on where it is, and get 3 out of the 4. So that's another, for instance, so your audience can kind of visualize what it is that we're talking about that I'm doing with the cards. Here's another, for instance. I can deal cards from anywhere in the deck, and I do this as a demonstration. I did it when I did it on Penn and Teller.
Penn & Teller wins a slot performing in their long-running Vegas magic show. Let's see if our first performer can do the trick. Please welcome the amazing Richard Turner.
Penn, Teller, can you join me at my table, please? Certainly. Penn over here, Teller on this. Let me have your cards there, Teller. You can let go. He was afraid I was going to steal them. Now, once again, you shuffled and cut, chose six players. Let's see what Teller has in the pocket. Penn, what is that?
That's a king.
And what is that?
That's another king.
Well, gentlemen, you can now go back to your huddle and see if you can reconstruct, believe it or not, the 13 different methods, techniques, and controls it took to take that wash shuffle deck and deal that pat hand to my partner.
We got nothing to say. He fooled us.
Oh, my
Get your
goodness.
rights. I want to make this very clear to you, Richard. This trophy we're giving you, it says on it, from the bottom of our hearts, Richard. From the bottom of our hearts.
Well, thank you.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, wow.
Teller wanted to bring down the trophy before I was done with my segment because I fooled him before I even got to the part of the show that I was going to do to fool them. And it's because I can deal, like I'll turn the card face up and I just start dealing. And you can't see the cards below it coming out or out of the middle of the deck or off the bottom of the deck or the second from the bottom of the deck. I'll even do it in super slow motion for people.
And that second deal was actually named in your honor, wasn't it?
The sweep second, yeah. The Turner push-up sweep second, yeah.
There was a funny line in that Penn and Teller video where they're walking away after you had demonstrated it and you turned your head and said,
"Oh, and Teller, if I perhaps fooled you, do you want to communicate with me? My right ear reads lips."
And so Teller doesn't talk, for those that are wondering. Penn's the talker. They both talk, but Teller in their show, he never talks.
Let's move on. We're into the later years in your career. You have reached the pinnacle. And by that, I mean you are now widely recognized as the best card mechanic, not one of the best, but the best card mechanic on the face of the globe. And many have even referred to you as the best card mechanic who's ever lived. So you are clearly at the pinnacle in your profession. But in recent years, your blindness has caught up with you. Talk a little bit about that and how this reckoning came to pass, that you finally chose to change your mindset and you've now accepted your blindness. And I know Kim, your wife, played a big part in that recognition and that acceptance.
Okay, and I'll preface it by just giving you my attitude. In 1981, I was asked to be on a show called That's Incredible. At the time, one of the highest rated shows on network television. And back then, there were only 3 stations, ABC, NBC, CBS. They wanted me to walk with a white cane. I said, forget it, not doing the show. And they said, oh, but it's so impressive. And I said, no. And then they came back. They said, how about if we just interview your eye doctor? I said, that I'll accept. I turned down the biggest show on television because they wanted me to walk with a white cane. And my thought at the time was, I want to be recognized as good at what he does on its own merit, not saying, hey, not bad for a blind guy, huh? Yeah, so that was kind of my attitude. So that was my thing. And then other shows, as they went through the year, same thing. I've been on dozens of shows. They would, tell us a little bit about your blindness. And I didn't know this. The movie Delt, I was the subject of. They had clips from these old shows. And I didn't know this at the time, but you could tell my face was like I was getting ready. I wanted to kill the guy. What does that have to do with anything we're doing? That was kind of my attitude. And then other times I'm having dinner with a group. I'm on the road. And then they find out later that I have a visual. See, they all said, oh, here, let me help you with that. Here's some of this, here's some of that. And I'm going, okay, yesterday you treated me just normal. Now you're treating me like I can't think or function on my own. Then as the retina continued to degenerate, where it encompassed my whole field of vision. In other words, my whole field of vision was gone. I started running into more and more things, and that started becoming painful because what do I talk about? I just had my haircut yesterday, and my haircut lady said, "You have a black eye? This is your third black eye in a row." I bent over at a hotel and bashed my head on the counter.
We've all done that.
Before, I could walk alongside somebody and be able to see their image. And then when I had to have somebody touch or me touch, I had trouble with that. For me, it was like going from a disabled person to a needed disabled person. Yeah, my wife finally one day, she said, "People want to help you. Let people help you. You don't need to be running into these brick walls. One of these days, these pillars are going to break and our house is going to fall down like Samson when he pulled down those pillars." I thought, oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I do have a hard head. And let's back up a little bit. Charles-Bonnet syndrome, that's a condition. Like I see the subconscious. So I see thousands of colors and patterns in every subconscious image you can imagine in front of me. Eyes are open, closed, lock me in a vault, pitch black. I still see vivid colors and patterns. And the thing is, like I can write in the air, and that's how I memorize phone numbers or names. I write it in there, I see it, take a picture of it, and I have what's called a eidetic memory. I don't forget it. So I could take my hand and wave it in front of my face like a pendulum, and I see it. Now, if I close my eyes, I see the exact same thing because my brain creates the image. But then I finally realized one day, there is really nothing left. It's all my brain creating the images in front of me. And it took me probably a year before I would accept the fact that there was zero left. There was nothing left peripherally. I just was constantly damaging my body by running into things. And like I said, my wife said, just let people help you. She had some good things. You know, you can't conquer what you're not willing to confront. So I realized, okay, this is my new reality. I'm going to have an arm or an elbow. And my wife, I can feel it in her hands. I can feel her thoughts with hardly no movement in her hand at all or her arm. And I realized, you know, I'm old. I don't care what people think anymore. At first, I wanted to be known for my skills alone. I didn't like the theme, handicap makes good. You know, I liked the theme, he's good because he's good. Now, I know that it's encouraging to people, and I'm happy to share or say or tell or talk about anything. And it was basically, as my wife said, get over yourself. You know, yeah, you're Mr. Tuffy, but you're not Superman.
You got a smart wife there.
We all have something that we have to deal with and that we have to accept. I didn't want to accept it, but now I happily accept it. I actually consider myself very blessed with the way I see and what I have been able to do with the other senses.
And my mentor was a man named Di Vernon.
Di Vernon is the guy that tricked Houdini in front of his wife, right? And Houdini's wife initialed on the card, you know, and he...
Right.
By the way, this is what he said about you. Having seen countless number of card experts execute for over 80 years, I consider Richard Turner to be by far the most skillful. He performs the most difficult moves with the greatest ease. I doubt if anyone can equal him. He does things with cards that no one in the world can do. No one. This is Di Vernon saying this about you.
I know, it's pretty darn cool, I have to say. And those in the business know who he is. For a century, the whole 20th century, he was the most influential person in the whole area of magic, sleight of hand, close-up magic, gambling work. When he would describe moves to me, he tricked me. He didn't describe them to me in the way that he could do them or the way that anyone else has ever been able to do them. He showed me this is how it should be done. And it wasn't until years later that he admitted to me that he made them up. He did not think they were possible to do that way. He did it just to see what this obsessed kid would come up with. And he goes, it's not possible. He said, your brain can't work that fast. Your hands can't be that sensitive. You break rhythm. It won't work. It can't be done. Then all of a sudden I thought, hold it, but I can do it. We watched my show at the castle there, and they came out and goes, I don't understand how you can do that.
Richard, with all that acceptance and stuff, what advice would you have for someone who is, let's take the transition age, like 14 to 21, that is facing their blindness and accepting it? What advice would you give them?
Find out what you love. Find out what you love, first of all, what you're passionate about, something that you don't have to try to do, something that you can't stop doing. You want to be a teacher. You want to be a gymnast, whatever. Find out what it is that you love, and then let that be part of what drives you, because it's our dreams that fuel the fire in our belly. Find out what your dream is and let that fuel your tenacity. And then when people tell you something's impossible, I say have a healthy disregard for anyone that tells you something's impossible. I say take possible out of impossible. And I understand that we're all dealt different hands in life, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. And every person out there that's listening, and all the people that are not listening, every one of them have some issue. Don't let anyone tell you what you want to do is impossible. I look at like A to Z, the B, C, D, E, F. I don't let them get in the way. All they become is part of the adventure. For me, one of the worst disabilities is laziness or procrastination. Again, I get back to the point that we all have something that we have to deal with. Everybody. It could be just insecurity. It could be doubt. It could be I had a tough time growing up. My parents weren't loving. I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that. There's just something that we all have to deal with. We're all human and we're all frail, and we will all at one point break down in one fashion or another and slowly go back to where we came from. So in the meantime, go A to Z, look at every letter between A to Z as part of the adventure. And if it's a good part of the adventure or a challenge, it becomes part of the adventure.
Good point. We're speaking with Richard Turner. Rick, as we wind this interview up, you've spent the greatest part of your life focusing on cards, karate, what you have referred to again as your obsessions and compulsions, but you've kind of changed your life. So what is your day-to-day routine like now? I know you're working on assistive technology. Jeff and I worked with you earlier on working with your iPhone and getting into this Zoom conference here to do the interview. So you've adapted yourself to using technology, but what's your daily routine like?
First, let me say the technology out there is so amazing. I'm the iPhones. I was a keynote speaker at Apple and Facebook and all these places, and the things that they're creating are available to us. I love my stream, my PC, and I'm also learning the Mac, which is another challenge for me because I'm going from PC to Mac. So I have both of them here at my desk. My sister said, oh, once you go Mac, you never go back. I like them both. So we have nothing to complain about. Everything is available to you. Every book, every magazine, everything you want is available. So in that regard, it's the coolest thing. And do I perform? Last year, I circled the world 4 times. I'm constantly doing television specials. I was on a show in Germany called Showdown of the World's Greatest Magicians, filmed live at the Porsche Arena in Stuttgart, Germany. And I had 77% of the audience vote. That means I won.
Here's something you never
Hier
do.
ist etwas, was man nie macht.
Never do this when you play cards for money.
Mach das nie, wenn du Geld
Never
spielst.
shuffle with one hand.
Nie mit einer Hand mischen.
It makes the other players
Das macht die anderen nervös. Die hauen dann sofort ab.
And on that note, I hope you all had fun.
Kartenspielen möchte, hoffe ich hatte Spaß.
Thank you very much. Danke schön. Thank you, Kathy.
I was honored in Japan as the greatest on the planet, which was a surprise. I didn't know it was an hour special about me. I didn't know what was happening until it unfolded before me. I'm a keynote speaker for Fortune 500. I'm getting ready to leave to Summer Friday, come home, leave again, and I'm off to do another special in Japan. In other words, I'm very, very busy, and I love it, and it's all fun. The only part that's the challenge is sitting on the airplane or sitting in the terminal. Fortunately, I have my stream and my audiobooks and my iPhone where I can communicate with people through text, email, or call.
You probably have that pre-flight takeoff from the flight attendant memorized.
Oh, big time. Half of them know who I am. When I'm walking through the airport, hello, Richard. Hello, Mr. Turner.
My goodness.
Yeah, anyway. Did you guys watch the movie Dealt?
Yes.
Of cards, Richard Turner.
He can do things with cards no one else can do. He's a trickster.
He is demonstrating the moves used by cheaters, the most difficult things you can do with a deck of cards.
You know, it has audio description on it, too.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. Wherever you watch it, it has audio description on it. Michelle Spitz did it. She's done dozens of films. Michelle Spitz, S-P-I-T-Z. She did a great job. It gives it a whole different flavor or experience because now you're with the rest of the audience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really neat. I just got to say, this is really interesting. My brain works very concrete, true, false, left, right. You know, I like that type of stuff. Plus artistic. So it's a combination. Just listening to how you manipulate the deck or understand the deck, the physical characteristics of the deck is just so intriguing and interesting. I don't think I could take the time that you've taken to do that because I'm already getting older.
If I would have had any idea how long it would have taken me, I would have never got started.
But your passion, your fire, it just kept on going.
Exactly. I never knew how long each of those things would take. As we talked the whole time, I never stopped practicing, but I was never conscious that I was practicing until you brought it to my attention. And that's why I'm able to put in so many hours, is I will take it, figure out what it is I want to accomplish, analyze it till it's the way I want it to be or it needs to be, and then I'll turn it into a subconscious habit.
My wife probably wishes I could do that with housework subconsciously.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put your stream on, get your headphones on, and listen to a good book as you vacuum. That's what I do or dust.
Yeah, on the Victor Stream, you can actually download or enable the Blind Abilities podcast if you go to the podcast section. We're on their favorites list.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Perfect. Just to let you know what else I'm doing, I've created a series of board and puzzle games over the years, and I'm in partnership with some of the biggest game app developers in the world, actually. So I will have some other things coming out, and I'm going to do everything I can to make them playable for the visually impaired. So one of them will be called Richard Turner Texas Showdown. The other one's Richard Turner the Shark, and the other one's called Batty, B-A-T-T-Y, because it drives you batty. I actually came up with that game in the VH department back when I was 11 years old.
Oh, that's awesome.
Rick, why don't you share some of your contact information? You're all over social media. You're on YouTube. You've got your own website.
Just Google Richard Turner or Richard Turner Magician or Richard Turner Cards, anything like that. My website is richardturner52.com. My YouTube channel is, I named it after my son, youtube.com/AsaT52. Capital A, small s, small a, capital T, 52. But all that comes up just by Googling. And then if you want to see the trailer to the movie Dealt, spelled DEALT as in Delta Hand of Cards, it's deltmovie.com. I've done many shows in many places. You make yourself sick if you start watching all that stuff.
Yeah, you're all over the web. Richard Turner, thank you so much for taking time out of your still busy days to talk to Jeff and me and our audience. We want to thank you and wish you all the best of luck moving forward. And if you ever want to come on and chat with us and share any new information, any new games, any new endeavors, you just reach out and let us know.
That'd be fantastic. And I may just do that, as we do have some big announcements that'll be happening sometime in the next year. I'm honored to be with you, and you guys are great. And you have great voices, too.
As do you. You got the gift of gab.
Oh, yeah. Let me say bye to all your audience members. We'll see you at the card table.
Well, thanks again.
Bye now.
Thanks, Richard.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, howdy. Howdy.
This concludes our interview with Richard Turner. Jeff and I want to thank Richard for taking time out of his busy schedule to chat with us, and we certainly hope that you found him to be as fascinating as we did. Be sure to check out Richard's website at www.richardturner52.com, and of course there's lots of videos over on YouTube. His channel is www.youtube.com/AsaT52, and that's ASAT52. And of course you can find more podcasts with a blindness perspective on our website at www.blindabilities.com. And be sure to enable the Amazon skill on your favorite Amazon device. Just ask Lady A to enable the Blind Abilities podcast skill. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.
And you give them what's called a strip cut or a box cut. It's a running cut, just reverses the top and bottom. Another riffle and a cut. That is basic casino procedure. Oh, you have a little trouble there? Oh, it's your right hand. It's screwing you up. I can fix that for you. Put them in your left hand, take them, break them to where they're even like this, lace them up, and give them a one-handed bridge. Now, I have shown you a half a dozen ways of shuffling and cutting the deck. They should be pretty evenly mixed, yes? Poker Annie, would you hold your cards off the table in your hands? Let's see if this deck is pretty evenly mixed. Do we have ace through king, ace through king, ace through king, king through ace? I shuffle the deck back into perfect numerical order.
For more podcasts with the blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. And be sure to check out our free app in the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store.